Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me again as we continue reading Moodon Act 1. Last video, we read Chapter 1 and did an analysis, and we will do the same with Chapter 2 and so forth. So let's continue where we last were. Chapter 2. Moodon arises from his meditation. His body was covered in sweat despite the cold breeze that blew through the window of his hut. The rain was getting through, so Moodon grabbed a few slabs of wood he had to barricade the door. He noticed a few inches of water rising outside and began to worry. A flood was coming, as it does once every full moon. He sees Rollo walking over to the door and asks her, "It's going to flood soon. Get inside." "I came to talk to you." "We can talk later. Go back and help on Offrey." At that moment, Moodon realized that the man that helped them during the flood was no longer there. The look on her face was so innocent, but he knew inside she was just as tough as some men. "Let me finish my door and I'll be there." Rollo smiles and runs back toward her home, and Moodon watches until the heavy rain blinds his view of her. Moodon looks at his windows and doors, thinking about the proposition Riska offered him. Would his hut matter if he could save everyone from the floods altogether? That was the question he asked himself. Before thinking of anything else, he answered that question by grabbing his staff and his bag of rations. He runs out of his hut and sprints towards Rollo. His speed catches up to her, and she says, "That was quick. You finished up boarding that fast?" "Yeah, everything's fine," he says, looking back at his hut, knowing this may be the last time he saw it. By the time they reached Aunt Offrey's, the flood was to Moodon's calves, and the winds blew even more potent. His aunt stood outside, standing to nail the planks to the window, but continued to struggle. Moodon takes one end of the slab, and his aunt says to him, "Thank you, Moodon." "No problem. It's what my uncle wanted me to do." "You know he wanted you to lead us." Moodon doesn't reply, and continues to nail slabs to the hut. "Moodon," she says again. "Yeah, it's what he wanted." "I know, until Rollo is of age. I'm still thinking about it." "Well, after this flood, they'll be looking for a leader. They'll be looking at you. I might have a plan that I have a plan that might work. It'll stop the floods for good." Offrey takes a deep breath. Her face can tell she was disappointed in what Moodon said. "A lot of leaders said that before, and it never worked." "I know, the elders never let those stories go unheard, but this plan is different from all of them." "How so?" "I'll have to leave the Jungai for a while, and there's something out there that can help us. I'll take a few men and be back hopefully before the next flood if I leave soon enough." "You can't take the men with you. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, you need to go alone." "Why? I won't survive out there without the men." "You know how the Jungai gets after some floods. Villages attack villages. We'll need our men to keep us safe." "You're right. Alone. If I don't make it back by the second flood, you'll be back before then," she says to her nephew confidently. She smiles at Moodon, reminiscing on her years of looking after him. From the time he broke his ankle from running to when he got sick from overeating rice, Offrey was always there for him since Inya passed. As he walked into the hut, she started to worry if she had made the wrong decision to let him go out into the world alone. "You made the right choice," says a voice that Offrey could recognize in a heartbeat. Her late husband was standing behind in the flesh. "Raheem?" she says, full of shock. "Is it you?" "The boy needs to be a man. Let him go." "I was going to. I just thought you were making a bad choice." "I know you, Offrey. You overthink. It's what I loved about you. That overthinking of yours saved my ass enough times. But don't do it this time. Let the boy go." "I'm scared for him. What if he doesn't make it back? I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I let him go out there to die chasing whatever he thinks could save us." "And that is why he must go. I died trying to protect our people. That's what leaders do." "I miss you, Raheem," says Offrey with tears running down her face as she walks toward the image of her husband. The rain suddenly slowed down, and a beam of sunlight broke through the gray clouds. The image of Raheem started to disappear in the light. This would be the last time she would see her husband. "Auntie," says Moodon, coming back outside. "I don't think a flood is going to come today." Offrey wipes her remaining tears, turns around with a smile, and says, You know what they say? A short flood during one month means the next month will bring a bigger one. You better get moving then. I'll leave by morning. I want some rice soup before I go. Offrey and Moodon share a smile with one another as she finds some rice to make soup for her nephew. The fresh morning sun opens the eyes of Moodon. He gave his aunt and cousin each a kiss on the forehead before they woke up. He felt that it'd be best to not let them see him leave. As he treks through the jungai, he starts to think of what the dunes would look like. He didn't know much about the dunes or any other places outside his village. Aunt Offrey would scare him with bedtime stories about the scorps rising from the sand with teeth the size of two men and venom that will put one in a forever slumber. By the next afternoon, he finally reached those dunes. The sand felt hot on Moodon's feet, and as he walked uphill, more sand would get in between his feet and the sandal. He takes his shirt off and rips it in half to make a sock for his feet. As the heat on his feet went down, he thought he would be much colder at night without a shirt, but it was better than having every step feel like he was stepping into the fire. He had gotten used to the heat, for it had been hours spent in the sun. It seemed like he'd see his skin turn darker by the layer. The city of Halmia was beginning to show in the distance. He thanked the earth for getting him here before the cold night reached him. By sundown, he figured he'd reach the city walls. Moodon began to pass by merchants and families that lived outside the city. He noticed a pair of girls soon passing by. They looked his age. Moodon enjoyed interactions with girls his age, and they enjoyed Moodon's company. But to Moodon, he felt all the girls in his tribe were more like sisters to him. He saw them all grow up, lose parents, and even become parents. It did not feel right for him to lay with some of the girls, but that did not stop him from years prior. I remember my first time with a girl. Her name was Sia. She had short hair and skin the same complexion as mine. She came to me when I was working on repairing my hut. I was almost done with the roof when she sat down on the bed and went on and on. I couldn't remember what she was talking about, though. It wasn't that I didn't care. I enjoyed her presence, and she was good to look at. It was the fact that I was almost complete, and she distracted me. As if she read my mind, she asked if she was distracting me. I said no to be nice, and went on with her for a few moments. She mentioned sex, and we agreed to do it within a few short sentences. I didn't know what I was doing, and neither did she, but after a few more times, we both reached the pleasure everyone raved about. I thought we would marry, as many people do in the village after having sex a couple of times. It changed when that month's flood got to her family's hut and drowned them. That day I told her she should stay with them during the flood. Her talking had got on my nerves and I needed a break. Sia always could read my mind and knew when I needed space, and she had no problem with that. I wish I had just talked back to her that day. She would still be here. The girls in passing were staring at him the same way Sia looked at him the night they laid together. Their skin was slightly darker than Sia, as dark as the sun could make it. Moodon could hear the pair of girls whisper in a language he could not understand. He knew the looks were out of attraction. "Hey, ladies." They whispered to each other simultaneously, followed by a giggle from both. "Do you happen to have extra clothes? See, I happen to." They don't know what I'm saying, Moodon said to himself. Will anyone in Hami understand me? Moodon holds his hands up and signs what a shirt would be. "Clothes," he says as he points at their bag, followed by his arms rubbing. "Cold at night." Moodon points at the sky. "Ah," said the girls. One of the girls digs into the bag on top of the cart. After shuffling a few things around, she pulls out a cloth. It's burgundy, but it's faded. It looks like it was used to cover and wrap items in, but it would last Moodon a while. She hands the cloth to Moodon, and they stare at him, smiling, not waiting to be paid in coins, but in something else. Moodon leans over and kisses both girls on the cheek. They look at each other and continue their path, giggling with excitement. From afar, Moodon can see the two guards standing at the gate, stopping each person before being allowed into the city. Moodon sees people turn around, but cannot hear and says to himself, "Why was that old woman not allowed in? Will I be allowed in? I'll climb the damn city walls if I have to." The old woman passes by, and without remembering she most likely won't speak the old Felician language, he asks, "Why did they turn you around?" "Fisque no se sale," says the old woman as she keeps stopping by. "Next. Reason for entrance." The guards' voices are now clear enough to hear. A man passed by Moodon, along with two who looked like his wife. As Moodon looked closer, he saw the man whispering to her angrily with his hand gripped tightly around her arm. The lady's face was full of fear, and with each person they passed, she would look at them, crying for help with it, only her eyes. When she locked eyes with Moodon, she slowed down and began to say something. Before the words slipped from her lips, the man pulled her more brutally and grunted at her. His pull was so strong, a small coin bag dropped from his pocket and Moodon picked it up. "Aye, sir," Moodon shouts. The lady turns before the man, looks at the bag in his hand, and quickly shakes her head. The man turns and yells, "What the fuck do you want, boy?" "Is she all right?" "Mind your fucking business," he responds as he turns and keeps walking. He felt terrible for not giving the man his coin back, but felt even more for the woman. "Next, reason for entrance," the guard repeats in the language Moodon was raised to know. "I just want to enter the market, get some food for my sons," says the woman to the guards. "Markets are about full," says one of the guards. "It'll be 5 coins to get in." "But then I won't have enough to buy the food. Please," begs the woman. 5 coins or turn around," says the guard. "Should have came earlier," says the other guard. Moodon looks at the woman and her 3 boys, and he holds the bag of coins he picks up. "Here," says Moodon as he skips the 3 people ahead of him. 5 coins. Let the mother and her sons go through." "What's your reason, savior?" asks one guard as the other inspects the 5 coins Moodon placed in his hand. "I came to join a crew, to become a sailor." "A sailor with a bag of coins." 5 more for you, sailor savior." Moodon reaches into the bag, and he can feel the weight lessening. He instantly regrets paying for the mother and her sons, knowing it cost him 10 coins to enter. The price for himself would have cost him more if he had just told them he was joining the crew. His heroic behavior cost him. He couldn't help himself. Seeing a mother and son struggle was something he could relate to. It was his way of making up for taking the drop coins. "All right, go through," says the guard. "Next." Thank you, sir. It means so much," says the woman, holding her hands together. "Don't worry about it. Get some food for your boys. They'll need it to become strong and fight one day," says Moodon as he smiles at the 3 boys. They all look down, upset from the words just spoken by Moodon. Their father was a warrior, and he died in the war a while ago. I'm sorry to hear. I lost a mother, not to war, but I know what it's like to feel the pain of losing a parent. You have a good one, ma'am." "You as well, and thanks again. I'll have to repay you if our paths cross again," the mother says as she gathers her boys and head towards the nearest market. "Wait, ma'am," says Moodon as she turns around. "Do you know the quickest way to the harbor?" "I'm afraid I don't, actually." "Exactly. But if you take that left, you might be able to see it from uphill. But you might want to wait till morn. That side of the city tends to have a lot of muggers that'll want that coin you got there." "Thanks for the know." Moodon walks down the cobble street. The noise of so many people was new to Moodon's ears. The jungle was a quiet space, especially as the day went on to the end. The loudest noises were crickets and night birds. But Hamio was different. Every other building was a tavern filled with men and women singing and drinking, something rare in his village, for there was never much to celebrate. Only songs he heard were sung by mothers hoping to put their crying babies to sleep during the storms of the night. A particular tavern was louder than all of them. Lights were hanging outside, and a strong ballad could be heard. "Woo scala wasate, woo scala woo, woo scala wasate, woo scala woo." The voices singing sounded happy to Moodon. He was attracted to the vibrancy coming from the tavern, so he entered. A few men started noticing his presence, and a few women also gave him an eye. Moodon finds an empty table to sit at. The men he now saw were dressed in shiny orange armor with the city's sigil painted onto their breastplates. After his previous encounter with the guards, Moodon knew to try and avoid as many guards as he could. Guards asked questions Moodon could not have the answer to. "Can I get you a drink?" asking the young woman. She looked tiresome. Moodon could tell from her eyes. "Water is fine." "Sure you don't want something stronger for a man like yourself?" says to Moodon as she smiles, trying to convince Moodon to buy. "Water will do me." "You come to a tavern and ask for water." She leans in closer. "You don't want to look more like a foreigner." The waitress places a cup on his table and she says, "On the house. Don't drink it too fast." "Wait," says Moodon. How did you know I was a foreigner? I know everything that enters here. I know every drink these men order. I know what whores they fuck. You have never been here before. Never had a drink either. But judging by your looks, she pauses. You've never had to pay for it. Am I right? Moodon chuckles and raises his glass to confirm her speculation and sips from the cup of cacti juice. The cacti juice is a popular drink brewed from a cacti plant that could have any man or woman out of character from its strong taste after 2 cups. Where are you coming from? Asks the woman. Moodon pauses as he squints his face from the strong drink. He puts the cup back down and tells her, Far. From the Jungai. Not many men from the Jungai come to Hami unless they're trading or looking to escape. Which one are you doing? Looking for trade or looking for a way out? Just as Moodon opens his mouth to answer, a strong voice across the tavern yells, More ale over here, more ale. I have to go. It was nice speaking to you, Moodon. Moodon from the Jungai. I'm Lihei. Lihei from the tavern. They both smile and chuckle at her joke, and she says, Enjoy your night, Moodon. A man at the center table continues to eye Moodon. He began to think to himself, Does this man want to fight or lay with me? He heard that many men in the Felician desert cities keep their beds open. Thought it was just a stereotype Moodon did not want to find the truth to. He hears conversation coming from that man, a few years older, the same as his Uncle Raim. Well, fuck off then. I don't need a scrawny pussy like you pulling my sails. Another man replies, looking as if he spoke for the 3 men standing behind him. We're tired of your shit, Calloway. Captain Calloway of the Osha Sea to you. Captain of shit. What did you say, lad? Calloway stands up, having a slight size advantage over the younger sailor. You heard me. We're done sailing the sea with you. You haven't paid us in 4 full moons. Quite honestly, you've been a shit captain since we returned from the Isles. The Isles? That's where Dov is. If I can get on this ship, I can find the rock, thought Moodon to himself. Go then. I don't need you pile of shit pile of a crew. I'll find better sailors, one that don't go running back to their ma's tits whenever someone's navy arrives. The young man angrily looks at Calloway, anxious but ready to throw a punch. His fist balls up, but he turns around, storming out of the tavern, followed by the other men. Calloway yells out before sitting down. Free ale for anyone who isn't afraid of adventure and wants to live a full life sailing for me. Captain Calloway of the Osha Sea. Pipe it down, you damn pirate. No one gives a roo shit, says a soldier from his table of comrades. A roo is an animal most people in the desert cities use for transport. Their pouch hold their babies and everything else one wouldn't want to carry while traveling. Soldiers ride roos, also known to fight the enemy back using their large legs to kick and put any man on their back. You're lucky we don't arrest you for piracy, said one of the soldiers, whose voice sounded familiar to Moodon. He didn't look the soldier's way since he entered, so he couldn't tell who it was. Piracy is legal in Hamia. I can walk these streets openly without fear. I pay my tax. Now fuck off, says Calloway as he takes a huge gulp of his drink. Not since the wedding, says the second soldier. Calloway's face turns from confidence to confusion. Oh, you must not have heard, says the soldier as he stands up, followed by his comrades. The room started to turn silent, as even the prettiest woman could not draw more attention to the conversation began to escalate suddenly. Princess Naima married off to the king of Dov. Soon, piracy will be illegal as it is in Dov. Rue shit. She is the princess of Drios, not Hamia. You think King Turin will go to war over letting pirates live? Drios has more men, so they have control of all the cities in Philicia. And it'll be more money in the king's pockets and ours with you pirates out of the seas. What do you say, fellas? Let's cash in early, says one of the other guards. The guard reaches for Calloway's sword, while two other soldiers grab Calloway. Hey, yells Lihei as she sets down her plate of cacti juice. Take it outside. The guards continue to escort Calloway outside the tavern and into the alley. Moodon can hear the punches and kicks from the table. The tavern was quiet for a moment, but slowly the noise picked back up. It was as if nothing had just happened. The conversations continues. The cardsmen serve the cards, the waitresses serve the drinks, and the women continue to serve themselves. The thought of trying to find someone to take him to Dav began to weigh heavy on Moodon. He looks down at his staff and steps out of the tavern. Outside the tavern, he finds Calloway on the ground, looking at what would be the end of him. "I'm pretty sure we can work something out," says Calloway tirelessly as the guards continue to kick his stomach and the dirt in his face. A few coins fall from Calloway's pockets and the shiny gold pieces attract eyes. The help discreetly watches, hoping to pick up one of his coins up for themselves. "I don't know," says one of the guards. "We heard those men yelling at you. How about this? You tell us where your pirate ship is, and I'll let you live." Calloway's laughter and the guard's proposal adds salt to his wounds as he spits blood at their feet. "So there's a ship docked in our city that's probably stolen with stolen goods. Fellas, I'd say that's worthy of an execution, wouldn't you?" "Aye," says his comrades agreeing. "My ship isn't stolen," says Calloway, trying to speak without causing pain to his jaw. Moodon looks from around the wall and grips his staff tighter, waiting for his moment to attack the guards. "Let me live, and I'll join the Merchants Guild. I'll send you coin each month." No way a pirate reforms himself to follow the Merchants Guild. Not after getting their hand on some real gold. "Now tell us where the ship is," says the guard. He takes his knife and lightly spreads it across Calloway's face. "The harbor," Calloway replies Calloway, touching his face and making sure the guard's knife didn't slice his skin. "Roo shit," says the guard as he kicks Calloway back to the ground. "Pirates never keep their ships in the harbor." "That's what you expect. I keep it there in plain sight so no one will think to steal it. I promise you, it's in the harbor," says Calloway, trying to catch his breath. "You two, run down to the harbor and see if he's shitting us or not. The rest of us will keep having a little fun with our friend here." The two guards run out of the alley so fast they miss Moodon standing on the other side of the wall. "Let him live," says Moodon as he turns the corner. "I know you. You're that fella from the gate earlier," says the guard as Moodon notices the voice he recognized was the guard that took most of his money. "Came to be a hero once again, huh, Savior?" Moodon tightens his grip on the staff again and points it towards the shoulders. "Last time you had the money to save the woman. Let's see if you got the fight in you." The first two guards step forward to Moodon. One lunges with their sword, but quickly Moodon slides and strikes the enemy's face with his staff. The guard falls back while the other one tries the same move. Believing he'd have a better chance than his comrade, he was proved wrong by Moodon's trips, as Moodon trips him and stabs his chest back to the ground. The last guard stood there over Calloway and said, "Seems like you do have some fight in you. Shame it'll go to waste after I kill you." The guard draws his blade and steps towards Moodon. He swings at Moodon's feet, but he's quick enough to jump over the sword. Moodon strikes the guard's arm, but the guard responds with only a smile. "That's all you got?" says the guard as he kicks Moodon's chest so hard he falls to the ground, disarming him from his staff. The guard stands over Moodon and winds his arm to deliver a final blow to Moodon. Before he could, Moodon grabbed his staff and held it above him just before the blade reached his face. Despite using all his strength, it was barely enough to keep the guard's blade from inching closer. Moodon notices the dagger wielded from the right side of the guard, so he lets go of his staff, and the guard begins to smile as he sees the staff slipping away from him. His smile stood as his eyes opened further and further, and a deep gasp split from his mouth. The guard looked down and noticed his dagger plunged into his side. He looks at Moodon and tries to swing his sword, but Moodon pushes the blade deeper and quickly pulls it out. The blood began to gush from his golden armor and pour onto the sand as the guard lay there, breathing his last breaths. Okay, so that was Chapter 2 of Moodon Act 1, and I really enjoyed reading that chapter with you guys. It was very interesting. Things are starting to pick up for Moodon in his story, and we're also learning more about some of his experiences. And we could just go off the events. Basically, the chapter starts off with him. What's happening here? Oh, a flood is about to start, but eventually it's not a flood, but it was just a light rain. And we get to see him finally make that decision as to whether or not he would leave. And he decides, you know what, there's no point in just worrying about saving my hut if I'm leaving anyway. So that's just one of his decisions that he makes to finally say, hey, let's go do this thing. Let's go take this adventure. I'm going to take some men with me and I'll be back. But his his aunt convinces him, no, we need the people here, so you should go. I believe in you, which, it's very different from what she is usually growing up. She tended to be a little bit more sheltering of him. But, when people grieve, sometimes they change as well. So she's grieving her husband at the time. So maybe she's thinking, maybe you should just go by yourself. Maybe that would work because we're going to get attacked if a flood happens. And, she tends to overthink, and she's thinking maybe that was not the right decision. But then she sees an image of her late husband, which I thought was a really good thing that I wanted to put in there. Cause, me personally, whenever I've grieved, when initially I lose a loved one, there's a moment where I feel their presence there talking to me, so I just wanted to put that in there with the book. So that way she could have her final moment with him. And, it could be something, give her some peace and comfort as she goes through her grieving process. So, Moodon leaves. He decides he's going to go before the morning. So that way, it's less of an event. He can just kind of just go on his own terms, and he takes the journey. It takes him a day or two to get there. And, his village is pretty close to where the dunes start. Throughout the lore and history, you'll find out that him and the Omer tribe, they're very, they're the heart of civilization. So a lot of the cities that started in the desert come from his people as well, and other tribes that were closer to them. So that's something that's just a nugget of lore that I wanted to throw in there. So that's why he's so close to these other cities, but yet so far to where he doesn't know much about them. But through the history, they are very close to one another. And as he gets closer to the city, he notices the language is different. He speaks the Old Philician, which is basically what the first true language was, but it's formed into something that's close, but definitely a different dialect, and definitely a different spelling of words and pronunciation, but they all root from the Old Philician. What they're speaking in Hamia, in somewhere Drios and other cities, tends to be the New Philician. But there's definitely more languages that we'll get into as this series and this whole franchise grows, because right now we're only covering the Jungai, the Isle of Dov, the Philician desert cities. But as we get into Zumania and other places in the Philician desert, we'll notice there's more languages that are spoken and more different, and where they derive from. So, what happens? Yeah, so he gets to the city and he ends up, coming across some coin, and this is where he starts to meet, like, he has his first interaction with somebody outside of the previous girls where he got the shirt from. He has an interaction with a man who is very aggressive with a woman, doesn't have really any context as to why he's being that way, but the guy drops his money. Moodon picks it up and he tries to help him, but the guy, doesn't want anything to do with him, so he just lets it be. And, that was just a decision Moodon had to make. He was like, you know what, I can't help you, at some point. He feels a little bit bad, but that's the goodness in him. But at the end of the day, in his world and in our world today, sometimes you could try to help someone, but if their energy is off and they're not even acknowledging you as a person, they can't get their blessing back, or they can't get the help that you were trying to give them. So he comes across the coin and he ends up giving it back, and giving it back in a way where he helped a woman who wanted to get her boys into the city, but the guards were being very extra about the tax and being extra about the gate fee. So he pays it, and then, he moves into the city, and it takes him a while. I skipped forward, but it takes him a while for him to really navigate, because he's really just taking in the ambiance of all the singing from the taverns and the amount of people on the streets this late at night, because coming where he comes from, that type of vibrancy doesn't occur. People are usually in bed at night, or it's storming at night, so you're in your hut just protected. So that's something he's getting used to. So it takes him a while, and he finally finds a tavern that he seems, interested to go into to get some water, because he's been in the desert all day, and he's finally the the euphoria of just being in the city is starting to wear down. And now he's like, okay, I'm thirsty. I need some water. Um, I've been traveling for the last couple of days. So he gets there and, he believes that he just looks like a regular person, but the woman in the tavern can tell he's a foreigner. She probably knew where he was from, the young guy, but wanted to have the conversation with him about where are you from? Because, so they, then he notices Calloway, which will soon to be Calloway, just staring at him and just giving him an eye, but he doesn't really know what's going on. And he notices that Calloway has a dispute with some of his old sailors, saying like, "Oh, you're not the great captain that you claim to be. You haven't paid us. You're risky. And Calloway's mad at them because he's like, just because we see a strong navy, which we don't know which navy it is, but just because you see a navy, you guys are scared and you want to go home, or you guys don't want to adventure." So they basically have a dispute, and they leave him, and Calloway tries to offer anyone. He's a little bit drunk as well, so he's trying to just be funny and be an extra character and just have that extra charisma and just be like, hey, if anybody wants to join, I'm willing to do this. Come on, who's not scared? Basically kind of mocking the people, the sailors in his crew that just previously left him. And those guards in the corner are just like, shut up. We don't want to hear that, pirate. And Calloway's like, who cares? Who cares if I'm a pirate? But these other guys, they're basically informing him that the laws are going to change because the king of Halmia answers to Drios, which is the biggest city in Phylacea. They have the most men, they have the most money. Even though Halmia is a port city and controls a lot of trade, Drios is just a larger hub. It's in the middle of the desert. A lot of people live there. And I'll get into the history of Drios as the book and the series goes along. But he's basically like, man, I don't care about that. But he's like, hey, the princess is about to marry somebody in Dov. And once you do business with Dov, you have to kind of go by their standards in a way. Dov is a more bougier land that looks down upon certain things. So when you do business with them, and they're very rich, they're a lot richer than Drios as well too. And all of Phylacea, they make gold. Their trade is gold and emerald. So but we'll get more into that as well. I'm kind of revealing a little bit too much, but it's all good for purposes of just, the context of why it's such a big deal that piracy is going to end. Piracy is going to end because Dov doesn't do that. So when you do business with them, you have to end those types of things as well. So, Calloway's trying to grasp that, but he doesn't care. He's a little bit drunk. He's mad that his crew left. He's trying to get people. In all seriousness, he does need a new crew. So it's like he doesn't really care who's marrying who. He doesn't care about the royal politics of things. But, the guards, they take that as disrespect. And they at first they were just kind of being funny, but now they're serious. They're like, oh, let's take him outside. He's talking shit. Let's take him outside to show him who we are. We're the guards of Halmia. We're the soldiers, yada, yada, yada. We've got the orange armor on and gold armor. I forgot which color. I believe it's orange. And they take him outside. And Moodon hears all of this. The whole tavern hears all of it. It goes quiet. Everyone's just like, oh, there's a lot going on. But once they take him outside, people are just kind of like, oh, it is what it is. It happens every night. This happens. Somebody talks mess to the guards. They take him outside, beat him up and whatever. So Moodon, that savior in him that the guard had told him at the gate kicks back in. He's already doing something. This whole mission is based off of saving people. So he's going to keep adding those moments of, let me save this person. Let me save this person. Because when you're on your way to doing something, like minor things that relate to it can just easily add up because you're already in that mindset. So he goes out there and he tries to stop him, and he has a staff. Moodon, the Jungai, one thing that does come from the Jungai well outside of rice is strong trees. They're able to create these strong staffs that I believe in chapter 1, he talked about that with Raim and training him. And so they use the staffs. They don't really use blades or things like that, but they use staffs that can almost knock you out as much as a sword could do. So maybe not the same piercing damage, but it can still do damage to someone, break bones, put you on the ground, knock you unconscious, and even possibly kill you if punctured with it in the right form or at the right angle. So Moodon goes out there with his staff, and he once some of the guards kind of go to check over to see if Calloway was telling the truth about the location of his ship, Moodon is like, okay, I could take 2 guys, or I could take however many now. And he's like, hey, let him live. Come on, stop all this. And he notices, oh, that guard whose voice sounded familiar was the guard from the gate, because now he notices me. And now, there's this energy that guard is already ready, like didn't like him at first because he was trying to like advocate for, hey, don't charge this woman extra for coming in the city with her boys. So he's already not liking that. He didn't like how he challenged his authority. So now they start fighting. And that guy, sometimes when you go into a fight with so much emotion and animosity towards someone, you end up losing. So Moodon ends up winning that fight, puts him on the ground. Then the other soldier ends up putting Moodon on the ground, but Moodon quickly holds the staff to keep the blade from coming to him. And that's another thing about the staffs from the Jangai. They're very strong. They're also strong enough to hold a blade, which something maybe the Hamiya soldiers didn't see coming. So maybe that's why they underestimated him, because they're like, this guy has a wooden staff. He's not finna beat us. So, but, so yeah, Moodon, but that grip he's losing his grip. The pressure's getting to him. Moodon's like, how can I still beat this guy? I'm going to have to kill him at this point. There's no knocking him out. He has the higher ground. He's on top of me. So Moodon, quickly just notices that dagger on the soldier's side, takes it and impales him in his side. And the guy, as Moodon let go of his staff, the guy thought, oh, this is easy. I got this. So then he winds up a little bit, getting a little bit overzealous, overconfident. And Moodon, stabs him with his own blade. And then that's pretty much the end of the chapter. And as I was reading that, I was getting excited because I'm like, wait, what happens? It's been a while since I've really read these chapters of this book. Of course, I know the story, but the details I forget a little bit. So I'm like, wait, how's Moodon getting out of this? I know he's going to get out of it, but how does he do it? So that was something that I found very interesting. And yeah, that's the end of chapter 2. And now chapter 3 will get a little bit deeper into what's next. Now you have one unconscious guard, one dead. You got them dead, and then you got 2 that are headed to the harbor, so they'll be back soon. So chapter 3 will dive deeper into what they're going to do next and check in on Calloway, see how he's doing, because he got beat up pretty badly. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for continuing this journey with me. I'm going to try to get these chapters done at least every week or 2. I know it's been a while, but just working on things with with my sports podcast and life in general, getting back into school as well. And just also writing Act 2 of Moodon and editing A Brother's Betrayal, which will be a short story that doesn't really have a release date. I'm working on it. But yeah, just working on those 2 writing projects within the world, and then just life in general and my other podcasts. It's challenging sometimes to get these chapters done, but it's very fulfilling. Like, I really enjoy sitting down and reading the chapter and talking about why I wrote the things that I wrote and diving deep into it and giving a little bit of spoilers and just also talking some lore about the world. So that way you guys can learn more about the world that I'm creating, So again, I just want to thank everybody for joining me, and I will see you next time. Thank you.